everyone, in this video we are going to talk about IGCSE Chinese test. Hello Bella, how are you doing?
Hello Mr. Lee, good, but recently I've just got a call from my student. She is asking about IGCSE Chinese test, but actually I'm not very sure about it.
I can help you, I think.
Thank you.
So IGCSE is the name for International General Certificate for Secondary Education. It's by Cambridge University and the Cambridge International Examination.
Could you tell me more?
Sure.
My first question is, who will take this exam?
Well, bravers. Anybody who take the IGCSE exam will be bravers. No, I'm just joking. Students, of course, high school students.
When do students need to take these exams?
That's a very good question. Basically, students take the IGCSE examination before they enter grade 11, or in some other countries or school curriculums, before they enter junior college. In England, we call it sixth form.
Well, so what courses do the students need to take?
Oh, that's a very good question. Altogether, there are more than 70 courses in the IGCSE test, and there are more than 30 language courses.
30 language.
Among all the courses, there are compulsory courses such as math, English, and science. So Chinese is not a compulsory course, but it is a course that students can choose to take.
Okay, so what is the exam dates?
Oh, exam dates. There are actually two exam dates. One is at the end of May of each year, and the other is at the end of November. Students can choose which one should they take based on their own school curriculums.
Oh, well. And what's the learning period?
Basically, there are 2 years. So students study for the courses for 2 years and then take the examination. Basically, the students' age will be 14 to 16.
Oh, yeah. So around grade 9 or grade 10.
Yeah, in some school curriculums, it is for students in grade 9 and 10.
Okay.
And after that, they finish the examination, they enter grade 11 and grade 12 before they go to colleges.
Wow. So next, I want to know what's the goal of the IGCSE Chinese
Good question.
test?
The goal of the IGCSE test is to help students to learn the very basic and important skills, language skills, and the knowledge, academic knowledge, before they further their study for IBDP, A-level, or AP, or SAT.
Okay.
So after this exam, they are qualified graduates, and they are qualified enough to further their study in their later high school years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. So now I know what IGCSE is, but my second question is, what are the IGCSE Chinese tests?
Good. IGCSE Chinese is a little bit complicated. I mentioned that there are altogether more than 30 language courses. However, for Chinese courses, there are 3.
3?
Yes. For example, there are 0547, the test code for Chinese Mandarin as a foreign language. There is also 0523, Chinese Mandarin for second language. And there's also 0509, Chinese for first language.
Well, for me, I think it's quite complicated.
Yeah.
I think my students might ask, teacher, which course I should take?
That's a very good question. A lot of students will find it very hard to decide which test should they sit into. So before we answer the question, I would like to encourage students to think about 3 things. For example, number 1, their language background at home. Language background at home is very important. If you have Chinese language input at home, for example, you speak Chinese at home, definitely you should take Chinese for the first language. And if you come from a family where you only use English or Spanish or Japanese, any other language, but no Chinese input at home, usually you should take Chinese as a foreign language. But if you come from a background in between of them, probably second language. So language background at home is the first thing we need to consider. The second thing we should think about is the Chinese curriculum at school. For some schools, they offer Chinese immersion group, which means they have Chinese input all day, from 8 morning until 3 in the afternoon. So definitely their Chinese input is strong enough for them to take probably Chinese as a first language. But for some other schools, the curriculum is different. They have only about 30 minutes or just maybe 1 hour in a day to learn Chinese. Definitely the input is not enough.
Yeah.
So probably they should choose Chinese as a foreign language.
Yeah.
So besides language background at home and the Chinese curriculum at school, there's a third thing you need to consider before you choose which test you should be in. That is your assessment from professionals. You need some professionals to assess you. For example,
Like you.
Thank you. But I think first person you need to go to is your Chinese teacher at your school. They know your Chinese level best than anybody else. And then of course you can come to Miss Lee or Miss Bella. We can give you very professional standardized test and tell you where you are and how we could help you.
Okay. Well, so if my student is from England, they always speak English at home, and her school curriculum is just 1 hour,
1 hour a
a
day.
day. I would encourage her to choose 0547 foreign language.
Exactly. You should recommend 0547 foreign language.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. My next question is, what's the learning contents of IGCSE Chinese 0547?
That's a very good question. You should know what you are going to learn after you choose to sit in the IGCSE Chinese test for foreign languages. For example, basically there are altogether 5 topics, general topics that students are going to learn. For example, A. Everyday activities. B. Personal and social life. C. The world around us. D. The world of work. E. The international world.
Can you tell me more?
Sure. Actually, there are subtopics under each topic. For example, under everyday activities, there are subtopics like time expression. For example, telling the time. In telling the time, you might be able to understand and know how to say about the time. For example, what time is it now? It's 1:30. In Chinese, 现在几点?现在1点半. And for days of the week, months, seasons, you might going to learn 1月15号, which is January 15th. 星期三, which is Wednesday. Of course, there are some other subtopics like food and drink. For example, meals, fruit and vegetables, in which you are going to learn what kind of meal do you like, what kind of fruit do you like. So basically, all these subtopics are the very frequently used words, vocabularies, sentence patterns that you are going to use in any kind of language, such as English or Chinese.
So
They're
it's
very
just
basic.
like our everyday daily routines.
Daily routines, daily conversations,
Yeah.
daily things we talk about every day. There are also some other examples. For example, personal and social life, the world around us, the world of work, the international world, and so on.
My next question is, what's the assessment objective of the IGCSE Chinese 0547?
For the assessment objectives, basically there are 4 papers and they test 4 different language skills accordingly. For example, in paper 1, approximately the test time is 35 minutes and it takes about 25 weights of the whole test. And it tests you in the listening skills. Basically, the marks will be 30 marks and the candidates listen to a number of recordings and answer multiple choice and matching questions. It is externally assessed. For paper 2, it's about 1 hour and 15 minutes and it takes also about 25% of the weight of the whole test. And it tests your skills in reading. It takes 40 marks. Candidates read a number of tests and answer multiple choice and matching questions as well as questions requiring short answers. It is also assessed externally. For paper 3, it's about speaking. The time is very short, only 10 minutes. It takes about 25% of the whole test, and it's about 40 marks. Candidates complete one role play and conversations on 2 topics. It is internally assessed and externally moderated.
Mr. Lee, may I know what is internal and external assessment?
Externally,
Assessed means the paper is not marked by your own teacher. In your own school, the paper will be sent out somewhere else, and somewhere else. They don't completely strangers, they don't know you, they mark your paper and they give you marks. And internal assessed, which means it's marked by basically in your school by your own teacher.
So,
For example, speaking is the only part which is assessed in your own school by your own teacher.
thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Now I understand.
And for paper 4, it's about writing. It tests students' writing skills. It takes about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and also it takes about 25% of the weight of the whole test. The overall mark is 45 marks. Candidates complete one form-filling task, one directed writing task, and one task in the format of an email, letter, or article or blog. It is also assessed externally.
Sorry, Mr. Lee. What is form filling task, directed writing task, and extended writing task?
Well, that's a very good question. In this video, we only talk about the general introduction of the IGCSE Chinese test 0547. If you want to know more about the writing, speaking, reading, listening, there will be other videos talking specifically about those, how to prepare for those skills.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lee.
However, everything we have been talking about just now, all the 4 papers and all the 4 skills are based on the current syllabus. The syllabus right now we are talking about is only for tests in 2022, 2023 and 2024. So it is not for the years before or after.
Oh, so do you mean this kind of syllabus will change?
Good question. Yes, syllabus changes. Syllabus changes every 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
However, the 4 skills remain the same. For example, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, they remain the same. They are always assessed in the exams. But however, the question style may be different, which means the questions may change a little bit. And finally, the syllabus is published at least 1 year before the exam date. So we definitely have enough time to prepare 1 year before the real test. If you follow our channel and subscribe us, we will keep you updated for the new, latest updates in the IGCSE syllabus.
Is it easy to pass?
Well, easy, it depends on how you define easy or not. It's very hard to answer this question. It depends on your time and effort in the subjects, okay? Nothing's easy. But based on our statistics in the past few years, I can share with you some numbers. For example, in 2020, if the students get more than 84% correct in the paper, they will get A star, which is the top score. And if the students get 71% to 83% correct of the paper, they will get an A for the exam. So basically, most students will get an A star and A. So in my opinion, if the students put into enough time and effort, and there is a good school curriculum to follow, and also they are professionally trained, it's not that difficult.
No. Anyway, students need to pay some effort.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. My last question is, when should they start, and how could they prepare for this test?
Well, I would like to say, before we think about when to start and how to prepare, we need to talk about their motivations and attitudes. I would suggest students to really think about why they are taking Chinese subjects, why they are learning Chinese. So they need to have a very clear motivation, and they have very good positive attitudes towards the learning of another language, Chinese. And then after that, I would like to suggest that students, if they really decide to take Chinese as their language course, they should decide as early as possible and start as early as possible. basically, as we mentioned, we have 2 years for the course period, right? I would like to suggest students to start as early as possible. For some international schools, they have Chinese class from K1, which is when they are 3 years old.
Yeah, my
That-
school is just like that.
Yeah, that's very good because if you learn longer years, that will lay a very good foundation for the language background. It's very important. And my next suggestion is students should not panic or be arrogant.
Sorry, Mr. Lee. Why do they feel arrogant?
Well, some students may think it's too easy to get it, so they do not put into enough time and effort in the subjects, and which might lead to a not very good result. But of course, some other students they have no language input at home and they might panic. So I would like to say, if you have a very good professional school Chinese curriculum at your school to follow, you don't have to panic, and you will follow your instructions from your teachers and also some other professionals like Miss Bella and Mr. Lee. Definitely, you can prepare and you will pass the exam.
Welcome to subscribe our channel. Thank you, Mr. Lee. I learned quite a lot about IGCSE Chinese tests.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.